You're listening to Business Stories with Ryan Arcaracci, where I speak to business professionals from all walks of life. Thanks for listening, and let's get to it. Good morning, everybody. We are coming out of Thanksgiving break, getting back into the working game, and I'm excited about my next guest, Vanessa Zamy. She's known as the business defibrillator. She is helping people, I guess, deal with being an entrepreneur, all of the stresses and work and late nights, sleepless nights people deal with as an entrepreneur. Vanessa is sort of the one who's the therapist in a way to help people cope with being a business owner and all the things you have to do and all the things you're responsible for. Vanessa, happy belated Thanksgiving, and thank you for coming on the show.
Happy to be here, Ryan. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so, before we get into what you do and how you help people, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into this role.
So how I essentially got into consulting small businesses. Well, so I've always been a problem solver and strategist. So before I started my own small business consulting company, I actually worked in a corporate strategy consulting. So I was helping Fortune 500 companies around the US and some international trips as well too, but helping them to make their millions and billions, right? Through strategy. I did various different strategy in many different industries, including retail, nuclear manufacturing, med tech, financial services, helping, companies, our clients at the time go from, thinking about new products to go to launch, thinking about ways to be more cost efficient with their marketing, thinking about ways to bring things to market and go to market with different items, right? And even supply chain things as well too. So many different experiences working in strategy, helping the big companies. And while I was in those roles though, thinking about how can we bring this knowledge to small businesses, right? And the community businesses that are out there in the small towns or in the small villages, where what I like to say about my clients is that yes, they may be small and local in footprint, right? They have that one office in that main center town, but ultimately in that main street, but ultimately they are big in vision. And so helping my clients to really, they've been around, a lot of my clients, right, they've been around for at least 10 years in their business, and they're thinking about really, what does retirement look like? What does true time and financial freedom actually look like, as they want to spend more time with their grandkids and even spend more time with their spouses and actually, have a life outside of their store or their restaurant. And so that was my journey to where I am today now. And I just love helping these ambitious business owners really grow their business without burnout by enjoying their life and having a life outside of their business.
And I think that's interesting what you said, that people start a business, but I don't think, especially if you're younger, you don't think about your exit plan. You don't think, well, what do I want to do, or do I want to sell this business, or how do I want to create a business that will sustain me as I get into retirement age and I want to have more free time with my family or my spouse. Do you think people don't really think about that? I mean, it seems like it's something that's sometimes for people, it's so far off, but it comes quick. So do you think that's a common question people really miss?
I'd say it's not necessarily a question they miss, but it's the answer to that question is what they forget.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, they start their business, with the intention of being free. And they continue, or whether it be, they start building a real estate portfolio, for example, or whatever it may be, they
Yeah.
start their brick and mortar store, they, turn their passion into a hobby. They say, I'm not going to work for anyone anymore because I want to, make my own decisions, all this other stuff. And so they start their business knowing what it is that they want, knowing that they want retirement freely, knowing that they want to, be wealthy and be able to pass something down to the next generation. But what
Right.
happens is that through that journey of entrepreneurship, through that journey of business ownership, they get lost in the hustle and bustle of, oh, let me do 24, let me work, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in my store, I got to get this inventory, all this stuff. And so they end up, in a sense, creating another job for themselves.
Right.
And they end up creating a job for themselves through all that stress. And then, a year goes by, 5 years goes by, 10 years go by, and they forget that answer to that question of what they ultimately wanted and what they ultimately started their business to do and the life that they actually in the beginning even wanted to create. So it's not so much that they don't think about it, but that they just forget the answer.
Right. Right. I mean, one of the things you talk about, which I think ties into this, is, as an entrepreneur, sometimes you're wearing a lot of hats. You're your marketing team, you're your sales team, your operations, you're the president, you're the CEO, you're doing everything. And it can be overwhelming. So one of the things you talk about a lot in your speaking is how to balance all of that. And what are some ways you can recommend to avoid that burnout and feel like your head's not spinning every day?
There are many ways,
Yeah.
but I'll touch on a few of them. So yeah, I have a whole 13-step hustle and breathe framework. And with my clients, we work a lot on just many different areas. When I work with my clients, I'm looking into all different areas of their business, including the marketing, the sales, the leadership, or the lack thereof, the finances, and all that, and everything in between. And
Yeah.
so, depending on what's happening with them, there are many different suggestions that I can make. I would say common threads though, because a lot of what I do also with my clients is helping them to grow that business and also enjoy their life. So I take a more, how do I say, I take a holistic approach
Yep.
to helping my clients. So it's looking at both their business and their life and how they can really be in synergy for my client to be just enjoy life, right? Have fun, grow money, and share is my mantra.
Right.
And so ultimately, some key things here for anyone who's listening who might be in a space where perhaps maybe you're approaching burnout or you're essentially like, how do I in advance try to avoid it? The first thing is thinking about strategic efficiency. So, strategic efficiency being how do you ensure that you have a strategy and a plan and a set of action items that you are clear on and that you're confident in? So it's not just, doing what everyone else is telling you to do or following the latest trend or fashion when it comes to marketing or inventory or whatever it may be, but it's how do you stay true to being intentional about your strategy, but also staying true to yourself, right? And having
Hmm.
that instinct and trusting that instinct to make the right decisions in your business. That's number one.
Hmm.
That's when it comes to the business side. When it comes to the life side, the key idea here is for you who's listening, right? Maybe you're in the space where you are thinking about, maybe I should just quit my business. It's been 15 years. I had a good run. Time to say goodbye. Well, it's not time to say goodbye, right? It's thinking about how do you now be selfish and how do you take that permission for yourself to be selfish? And I know you're probably listening to this and you're saying to yourself, oh my God, selfish is such a terrible word. Oh, that sounds disgusting. Trying to be selfish.
Yeah.
And think of it in a different way. It's not necessarily about, it's not necessarily negative connotation that selfish has. Really, what selfish is about is that you are in a space where if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be around to take care of your business or your team or your family, right? Or your customers or your clients. Like you need to take care of yourself. Otherwise,
Right.
if you don't show up, no one else is going to. And so you have to be in a space where you take care of yourself. And what does taking care of yourself means? It means many different things. It's not just, going to a massage or, escaping to a mountain somewhere, right? That might be the case for you. But taking care of yourself is something that can happen on daily, regular basis where it's really looking at what do you need to ensure that you are feeling good about yourself on a regular basis and understanding what do you need to say no to and what do you need to say yes to,
Hmm.
because the thing about it is that you need to value your time and your energy, because at the end of the day you only have 24 hours in a day. We all have the same 24 hours in a day,
Right.
and you have the vision that can happen with your business in terms of you want to perhaps, like one of my clients where we worked together, for, well, we didn't work, well, we were together for 6 months, but essentially after the first 2 months, she booked a flight to Portugal. She had wanted to go to Portugal for a while. She has had her bar in California for 12 years,
Hmm.
and she wanted to go to Portugal for a while. She knew that was a place where she also wanted to expand the business internationally as well too, and because they have a lot of great wine out there in Portugal. And
Hmm.
so, but the question was, okay, how can she do that and still have this bar in California? Like, what? Right. And so the
Yeah.
work that we did together was a lot around like leadership and financial management. And so getting her to the space where she had that team in place that she was confident in that would take care of the bar while she then spent 3 months in Portugal.
Three
Okay, not
months.
like
Wow.
3 days, not a
Yeah.
week, like 3 months in Portugal in a whole nother country, right?
Hmm.
And being able to do that while still having the wine bar open, while still making business, still having, customers saying, coming back for more, so to speak, because she had that team in place and she had the leadership ability, because we worked through that as well too, in terms of how can she support her team as well, even from afar, to be able to set them up for success and then set the business up for success. And so now she returned to California. Right after the 3 months, she's went to, expand the business, made some business contacts in Portugal as well. So they're going to expand their business to Portugal next year as well. But ultimately, it's now she can return to California, and now she's working on another business, her other business as well too, because a
Mm,
lot of my clients, they have multiple things going on. They have a vision for how they can help their community. So she
right.
also has a vineyard as well too, and an Airbnb business and real estate and all of this stuff. But now she's able to devote attention to that because now she has this solid team in place for this long-standing business, and she's able to navigate the different things that she wants to do most effectively while still taking care of herself and still sleeping as well too. And so there are just things like that where, and every client is different, like not every client wants to go to Portugal, right? One of my
Right.
clients, she just wants to go to rock concerts with her husband. And so
Yeah.
that's her thing. And so helping her to, and also spend time with her recently born granddaughter as well too. And so what freedom looks like is different for each person, but ultimately it's around how do we get the business in a place where they are strategically efficient and making the best decisions, and then how do they get themselves in a place where they are being selfish and saying no to what they need to say no to, so they can say yes to what they need to say yes to, so that they can continue living on for generations to come.
That is really interesting because I think most business owners think, I can't do anything because I have to run this business. I can't travel. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't have a hobby because I have to run this business. And I think it's interesting that you're able to work with them to make that happen because it seems impossible, honestly. So that's great.
Yeah,
Another
and it
question I
can
want to
seem
ask you too
impossible,
is,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I think this pertains to a lot of people, even including myself, like getting from if you're at one phase in your business, one level of, well, I mean, I guess whether it's financial or just in terms of how you define your success in business, what do you think holds people back from being at one level, getting to the next level? Like, if you're making this much now in your business, but you want to double that income or triple it, or, you know, get over to the 5, 10 million or whatever the number is, as big as it has to be, or as big as you want it to be. What do you think are the walls people put up to making that happen?
And so that's a really good question, because I know you had mentioned 5 million, 10 million, but it's the same walls are put up even when people are going from 150,000 to half a million, right? Or
Yeah.
half a million to a million.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where the walls really, it comes into mindset, right? We say in business, when it comes to business consulting or business coaching, I consider myself more of a consultant because I
Yeah.
provide recommendations to my clients. But I know my peers are more so business coaches. But essentially, no matter who you're talking to, we all say, business is 80% mindset and 20% strategy. So it's really only 20% strategy and it's 80% mindset,
Yeah.
because the walls really come down to what are people telling themselves. And so when you get to that point where you are in that flow of you are getting cash, maybe you're not getting it as frequently or as much as you want, but you are getting cash and income into the business where you're, able to at least pay the bills at the very least. What the barrier that ends up happening is a fear of success, sometimes a lot, right? So a lot of times it's a fear of success. So it's two things actually. One is a fear of success, and two is imposter syndrome. So the
Yeah.
first thing, the fear of success that ends up happening, is that people will, it's sort of the, okay, they were at a point, then they end up reaching like a greater point, right? Maybe they were at like 50,000 a year, now they're at $150,000 per year, and they're like, oh my gosh, but since I made that transition, look at all this stuff that's happening now. So in their
Yeah.
mind, it's chaotic, and they're like, oh, but if I end up making more money, it's gonna be even more chaotic. And like, I don't want that. And so there's
Yeah.
kind of this like barrier of self sabotage that happens
Right.
because they stop doing what it is to help them to grow for the fear of the growth and what the growth is going to mean.
Right.
So that's the first thing, is fear of success. And then the second thing is imposter syndrome. So the imposter syndrome being it's sort of the idea that, like, because a lot of business owners, like, you're ambitious in the beginning and you want, like, oh my gosh, like, it's great, right? And then 5, 10, 15 years down the line, your business gets to a place where people are giving you compliments, they're like raving about it, maybe you end up in the local news for an award or something like that. You're like, okay, cool. But then what happens is that there's a part of you that's like, this is not me, this is not happening to me,
Yeah.
this happened to someone else, right? Like there's
Right.
sort of this disbelief
Yeah.
that either you don't deserve it, or you're not worthy of it, or that. And sometimes it happens because there was some other voice in your life that told you that, and it went into your voice and your mind as well too. Other times it's your mind. Either way, it's still your mind as a business owner telling you that it shouldn't be happening to you. Like you were not in the right place. And I see this a lot with my clients. Like there was a recent client I was connecting with where he had, within the first 2 years of his business, right? He had gotten to a place where his business was making $250,000, and he still was calling himself a sales representative of his business.
Yeah. Right.
Like I was like, I went into his LinkedIn and I said, wait a second, you started this business, right? Now why say you're a sales rep? Like
Yeah.
you're the founder of this business, and so, but it was a level of imposter syndrome where he felt like, oh, yeah, but I mean, oh, I don't want to, tell people that, or oh, if I tell people, I mean, am I really a founder? And mind you, he's thinking about selling the business in a couple of years. I was like, if you're thinking about selling the business in a couple of years, you need to position yourself as the founder of the business because you are the founder of the business, right? And
Right.
so it's one of those things where, but that imposter syndrome, it has a funny way of creeping up, And so the two main things, though, is fear of success and imposter syndrome that really put up those walls and those barriers that prevent people from moving forward.
So it really comes down to just, I think, listening to the voice in your own head every day and telling it to shut up, I guess, once in a while, right? And really trying to reframe it, in other words, would you say?
Yes, reframing it. Yes, and then for people, for different people, the reframe is going to be based on different things, depending on what experiences in your life have contributed to that voice, so to speak. And so, but yeah, but essentially, it's like listening to the voice in your head. Not like don't tell it to shut up. You don't want to tell yourself to shut up, but it's
Right.
just acknowledging that it's there to help protect you, and just say,
Yeah.
thank you, I appreciate that, and just say the opposite, and just saying for example, sometimes it's a deeper thing that's the issue. So sometimes with my clients, when we get to that point where, and there's always a time in the sessions where they cry, which is great. It's a beautiful moment. It means that we've broken through
Right.
one of those barriers, right? But
Right.
ultimately, it is there's a point in time where sometimes it takes, like, some of them, like, we can work through it in a session, and depending on what's happening, other times it's a much bigger issue. And so what I do is I'll send my clients as well as a kind of a tag team situation, where I'll recommend them to one of my trusted life coaching people that I know, and we'll say, okay, we've reached a point in our business journey where, yes, I'm gonna continue working with them, but they also at the same time have to kind of go through this life coaching experience,
Yeah.
and in a way so that they can tackle those bigger issues. Because for me, I'm very much so a person where I don't like wasting my time. I don't like wasting other people's time.
Right.
So if I'm going to give my clients recommendations that I know is going to help them, I expect them to do it, right? And so, and if they don't, or if they're putting up these barriers to doing it, if they're sabotaging themselves, then that poses an issue to the work that we're doing. It poses an issue to the results that they can expect to get. And so because of that, it's one of those things where I'll bring in the people that need to be brought in, and working with, my close partners to be like, okay, here's someone, we need to do a joint collaboration, and we'll just connect with each other and really be that supportive team for my client to help them to elevate their mind in a way that helps them to really think of the world in a different way and think of themselves in a different way in terms of what they can accomplish as well too.
Right. Well, before we wrap it up, I got a couple of questions I want to ask you. One of the things is how much would you say empathy plays a role in leadership? Just working with employees and clients, how big of how important it is to work on your empathetic side?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I think about empathy, I think about emotional intelligence. And so when you ask the question of how important is empathy, it's
Yeah.
very important. Yeah, very important. I
Yeah.
mean, it's one of those things where I think that's part of the reason why a lot of my clients, they'll say in the reviews, like I have a lot of recommendations on LinkedIn where clients are reviewing me. And even as a speaker, I'm also a speaker as well too. So I also consult and I also speak and will, do different teachings on my frameworks and approach, because
Yeah.
I'm all about helping to ensure that, people are getting the message across and getting the message on how they can be more efficient and effective in their lives so that they can be more productive and happier for themselves and also for the people around them. And so even as a speaker, right, people will say, oh my God, Vanessa was so relatable. Like, oh my goodness, like it's so great. Right. We
Yeah.
call us the business story. You call us the business stories podcast, Ryan. Well, let me tell you. Oh, when I do a workshop, there are a whole lot of stories.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yeah. But ultimately it is, empathy is very important, right? It is very important to think about something. It's one of those things where, I mean, I remember when I was younger, I was not people. Oh, people always said I was selfish, Ryan. Let me tell you, in my times I was so I was selfish. But in my mind, the way that I operate is that no, I think about what people are gonna think, and sometimes I just don't care. So we'll
Yeah.
still do it. And so yes, maybe that makes me selfish, but alas, right? It is sometimes what's needed is that you need to be able to say no, you need to be able to say yes, so that you can say yes to yourself and say yes to your future, say yes to your vision, and say yes to the people that you want to help and that you can help. And when it comes down to it, though, empathy with anyone who's a service provider who's listening, or with anyone who maybe you're not a service, but maybe you're a product, you have products, right? You are a clothing boutique store, you're a furniture business, you are a restaurant, right? Your product is food, but whatever it may be, is thinking about having that empathy to think about the customer, right? Thinking about what does your customer or client want? What are they experiencing? What is happening in their world? And
Right.
how can you relate to that and be there for them through whatever product or service that you're providing,
Right.
right? How can you be there for them?
And really understanding their particular problems and issues,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whether it's
Indeed.
with their business, if you're B2B, or if it's personal, if it's B2C, then you need to put yourself in their shoes for a minute and think about how they feel. I mean, it's interesting. I went out to lunch the other day and the waiter had messed up our order. I mean, I don't know if it was him that messed it up or someone did. Anyway, it took a while, right? But the waiter came up and said, "Hey, can I get you some free soup? Can I get you a free drink? Can I get you anything?" And I just thought to myself, at a business level, if he was running a business, that's great. I mean, your problems are going to come, but it's about how you handle them and how you make the customer feel like they are there, and you understand that maybe they're not happy, they haven't gotten their food yet. So you understand that you feel for them, right? And I think that's what the waiter did. And I thought that was great because he didn't have to do that, but he did. So I felt that was a good example of empathy, you know?
I love that example. Actually, you remind me of something else where another restaurant situation where me and my friends, so I went out to, California to visit, and this was during the pandemic, and so the world was just kind of opening back up a little bit in Northern California. So we
Right.
went out to eat. It was just the two of us eating out for dinner, and we waited. First of all, we waited. It was one of those like wait times because you don't have a reservation, so you got to wait, right? So we
Yeah.
waited and waited for like an hour, and then finally we were seated. So we were seated down, and we waited for another 45 minutes to another hour because
Wow.
I guess whoever sat us down did not tell people that we were seated here and needing
Right.
help. So we just sat there like, okay, is anyone gonna get some water or a menu? Did they
Yeah.
forget us? And it wasn't until we saw other people getting, other tables, we were like, maybe just forgot about us. What happened? But
Yeah.
ultimately, eventually, someone came by and they eventually treated us, and like literally they had the server come. They had like different people on the staff just came up to the table and was like, "Oh my god, we're so sorry. We forgot about you.
Yeah.
Like, da, 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 what can we do? They ended up, yeah. So it was a great experience, but it was very much like the way that we handled it. They ended up saying, anytime you come back, this dinner's on us. Feel free.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
because they just had that empathy. They were just like, oh my gosh, like, and of course, but I think it's also the other side of it, whereas us as patrons and as customers who were experiencing this, we also approached it from a very empathetic perspective as well too, in terms of, what, they're really busy, they're short on staff, and so there
Yeah.
was a level of like, yes, we were selfish enough to eventually raise our hand and say, hey, let's get some food, you know, but at the same time, we were empathetic to say, we're not going to sit here and like, scream, be like, oh my God, he forgot about us.
Right.
It was
Right.
very much like, just keep calm. We're going to get our food eventually. We're not in a rush. We're just living our life. And so
Yeah.
empathy works both ways at the end of the day. And it could just help both parties be in a better position for it.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, and it's amazing what little things you can do as a business owner. Just to know that, if you admit to making a mistake, it shows that you're human because we all do. And it doesn't matter whether you're running a Fortune 500 company or a small business, just admitting you made a mistake and doing something little to make that person feel like you care, it carries a lot of weight. And like with the lunch I had the other day, I'll still go back to that place, even though that happened. I'm not upset with the staff or the owner or whatever. I'll still go back just because of the way that waiter handled a difficult situation. So, you know, that's just, I agree with you 100%. Empathy is both ways. So we do have to wrap it up, Vanessa, but this has been a good conversation. I know you have a lot going on. You do some speaking gigs and you also have a podcast. So can you tell people where to listen to your podcast and what you have going on?
Yes, I do have a lot going on. I'd say I'm not sure when this episode will be released. But essentially, if you are able to join me December 20th, I do have a goal setting to goal getting workshop. Seems to be really popular, so maybe I'll host it again at the beginning of the year. But ultimately, at the end of this year, 2022, I do have a goal setting to goal getting workshop to help people strategically plan for 2023. It's pretty much like a almost 2-hour masterclass, and so you're welcome to check that out. The link is at the top of my LinkedIn page. And otherwise, though, the best way to reach me is via LinkedIn, Vanessa Zamy, and you can catch my live show on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Entrepreneurship is a marathon. If you search a YouTube channel for Vanessa Zamy or at Zamy Vanessa, Z is in zebra, A animal, M money, Y, you will find me. So Vanessa Zamy, you'll find me if you just Google me, you'll find me. Vanessa Zamy YouTube. Entrepreneurship is a marathon. We go live every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. And then you can also catch my podcast as well. Entrepreneurship is a marathon on all major podcast platforms as well, too. And so if you want to catch me live, though, somewhere, by all means, just look me up, vanessazamy.com. We have I have the upcoming events as well listed there as well. So you can go to vanessazamy.com, click the For Small Business Owners tab, and then you'll see upcoming events in the Contact Us section as well, too.
Awesome, Vanessa. Well, thank you so much. If you're listening to this and you need help, you're stressing out about your business, or you're not stressing, you just want to improve and maybe, make more money and just get some better ideas, you have to reach out to Vanessa. She's excellent. She's very knowledgeable. She's got the experience. It's been a good conversation, Vanessa. Have a great holiday season and a successful 2023. And let's keep in touch, okay?
Yes, it's a pleasure being here. Have a lovely, lovely end to the year. Chat soon.
Did you enjoy this episode? I hope so. If you want to support the podcast, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Ryan Says Thanks. Your support is appreciated. And hey, even if you don't buy me a coffee, I'm happy to have you listening. So keep it up, and thanks again.